Hello, welcome to F22, where we bring all things photography into focus. I'm Zach Hodges, and today we are super privileged to have Simrah Farrukh on the show. Simrah is an American Pakistani photographer based in San Francisco, and she's been shooting for over a decade. And in that time, she's amassed a really amazing client list, including Vogue India, Netflix, Disney, and the New York Times, and I'm leaving out a bunch of others. Her South Asian and Muslim identity is a big part of who she is, and she's dedicated to helping people feel seen and empowered. And so just, amazing person and amazing photographer. So we're so happy to have you on the show. Thank you and welcome, Simrah Farrukh.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and speak with you today.
Yeah, so maybe just to kind of start us off, tell us about who you are, where you are, the kind of work you do. Help us kind of get to know you.
Yeah. So I am a Pakistani American photographer based in the Bay Area, and I've been doing photography for over a decade since I was a young teenager. And throughout that journey, I have really just found my voice in this world and what message I want to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Currently, some, currently I am working with a few like small fashion sustainable brands that I really
Mm,
enjoy, and it's kind of like the direction I'm going in while bringing like an
cool.
artful lens to the overall picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So like with an aim on sustainability, kind of with a purpose, but with also your artistic and your creative kind of abilities thrown in there.
Yeah.
That's great. So maybe kind of tell us the story of how you got started. I mean, you clearly didn't just start off shooting for some of these big clients. You know, how did you start? What's the story there? And how did you end up to where you are now?
Yeah. So I started off with photography just as a hobby, and me and my friends would go on trails behind our houses. And whenever any of us would get like a new outfit, we would just bring my camera along with us and chase take random photos. And those would end up being like just simply our profile photos on like Facebook.
Yeah.
And from there, as I grew older, I kind of grew with my work and with
Mm,
photography. So when it came time to applying to colleges, I nothing else made sense except for photography. So I
right.
decided to pursue that as a career. And around that time when I was applying to colleges, I had a pivotal moment in Pakistan where I
Mm,
came across like an archive of family photos, and it really showed me the power that photography can have on people because I learned
mm,
so much about my family history and my background.
right.
So my college essays going forward were about that pivotal experience and that moment I had in Pakistan.
Hmm.
And from there, got into school. I went to Loyola Marymount University and studied studio arts with an emphasis in photography.
Nice.
And that's also kind of when my work started to gain attention and really get some traction going because I was working with like the South Asian influencers who were like on the rise. And
Mm,
whenever I do a shoot with them and they would post, it kind of was like a domino effect and kind of just brought more people to my work. And so my work then just became about like my South Asian identity and my Muslim upbringing and just encompassing the different multitudes of stories that are within that
right.
community. And then it also kind of paved into a path of doing my own artistic background, but then also working with these, again, small sustainable fashion brands that I really enjoy working with.
Yeah.
And so, with those two kind of paths, I've just found like that's kind of what aligns with my voice and my values most as an artist. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So, sound like a lot of it started for you at school
Hmm.
and the connections that you made there, and then that kind of led to you sort of finding the sort of niche that you like. And has it just been sort of like relationships, and one thing leads to another, or um, how has your business, your career grown in
Hmm.
that way?
Yeah. I would say that a lot of my bigger clients have found me because of the personal work that I was creating.
Hmm.
And it's something that I've heard a lot of in the industry is that clients will find you based on your personal work because it kind of shows where your passions are, and it shows more of like when you're doing something for money, then you're kind
Mm,
of doing it for money. But when you're
yeah.
putting out personal work, it's coming directly like from the core of who you are and from your heart.
Wow.
So, and that's kind of like you can tell the results are more beautiful when it's just coming out from you and not for the sake of like survival. So
Right. Yeah.
it was through like personal work and just constantly posting like on my Instagram and on VSCO and just showing the work that I was really passionate about creating. And then people started to like find that potential within me to create work for their brands through my
Right.
lens.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear actually, because I feel like there's so much energy focused on hacks, tricks, tips, how to make yourself more visible, how to get exposure, how to get visibility, how to get work and whatever. And it sounds like for you it was just really genuinely being who you are, finding your own voice, and that ended up being what brought you the clients that really aligned with your vision.
Yeah, exactly. It was a bit
Interesting.
of like putting myself out there and
Yeah.
a bit of networking, but for the most part, like even a conversation starter between like me and someone else would be like, oh, like what are you working on right now? Or and I would just talk to them about like a personal project I was working on. So the personal project was always the core, but there was also like networking, there was like doing outreach and like sharing that personal work, things like that.
Yeah. So you weren't like just throwing personal work out into the void and
Hmm.
Netflix and Disney come to you. Like you
Yeah,
had to do some work too. Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
That makes sense. That's interesting. Okay. So I do have kind of a maybe hot take question for you. Uh, a lot of people, talk about going to art school. I certainly thought about it when I was younger. In hindsight, I mean, it sounds like that was a big part of your story. Is that something that you would have done again? Would you recommend somebody go to art school, or do you feel like, actually, I could have gotten all this just teaching myself and not spend all that money?
I would say that it kind of depends on what you're doing. So, in terms of photography, I went to a school, like I majored in studio arts, but I went to just a general school that wasn't specific to art. So I did take other classes, but those were more like general ed courses.
Yeah.
I do wish that I was like had the opportunity to take classes around like building a business and like
Mm,
marketing
yeah.
because
Yeah.
those are all the things in a photography business that you kind of figure out yourself, or like
Yeah.
you're talking to another photographer and you're like, oh, how much do you set aside for taxes? I set aside this amount. And it's just like
Right.
that's how you kind of learn how to actually run your business on the back end of things.
Yeah.
So I would say that if someone were to go to school for art, I would say to at least take courses or like do a minor in something that will complement your
Mm.
art so that you can actually succeed and not get worried about when tax season is coming.
Yep. Yep. That's good. I feel like so or not enough attention is paid to that. Not enough light is shown on that because it's great to have good work, but I mean, I remember from my days as a full-time photographer, it was amazing how small of a chunk of time I actually spent taking pictures compared to all the other stuff that you have to do to run a business and just maintain that life. So that's really good advice. I want to talk a little bit about this Pakistan project that you've been working on because it's really fascinating. And I'm not even going to try to set it up. I just would rather you explain it and then we can go from there.
Yeah. So, as I had mentioned earlier, I had a pivotal moment in Pakistan, and that was around like 10 years ago when I was applying to colleges. And so this was me coming back to Pakistan after 10 years. It was for like a family wedding, but because it was going to be my first time back in 10 years or 9 years, I really wanted it to be, well, I didn't have really expectations for it, but I knew that I wanted to like create work there
Mm,
because the last time I was there, I had such a big moment that I kind of wanted to see
Yeah,
what this trip would entail for me.
of course.
So I got to Pakistan, and the socioeconomic culture and state of the country right now isn't the best. So there were a lot of challenges when it came to how I could create work. I would have loved to like just go on the streets of Pakistan and take my like Sony camera with me and just take
Yeah.
photos. And while it could have been okay if I was like with a cousin who really knows the areas really well, it still was a little bit risky,
Hmm.
um, because there's just been an increase in crimes and an increase of like snatching phones and cameras
Yeah.
and like expensive items. So that kind of threw out a lot of ideas for me, and I kind of had to get creative with like the
Hmm.
resources and situation and just circumstances that I was in. So my next bet was to just take my phone with me,
Hmm.
but it was also a bit risky to just bring my phone out with me. I actually had two phones in Pakistan. One was like it wasn't a burner phone, but it was just like more of a cheaper phone so that I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
like at least call people if I needed to. So I had two phones with me, one my iPhone, and I would pull out my iPhone to take pictures. And there were a lot of times where I was just in a car traveling because I was doing a lot of shopping for the family wedding, and we were just going to like different stores and halls and things like that. So a lot of my time was spent in a car. So
Hmm.
as I was in the car, I would just like be looking out the window, and there'd be so many like interesting scenes that I would just notice, but they were going by like really quickly. But
Hmm.
then there
Yeah.
were moments where we were just like stuck in traffic and the cars were like at a complete stop. And in those moments, it was a bit trickier to pull out your phone because
Hmm.
in when your car is just stopped and someone sees that you have a phone, they could instantly just come up to you, knock on your window, and like hold a gun to you, like you, and
Whoa.
snatch your phone. And if you don't, then bad things. But
Jeez.
so it was just kind of like a
Yeah.
risky situation, and I had to just become more discreet about it. And I
Hmm.
also felt that just as a woman, I was like already in the public eye a bit. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a situation where I had to get really creative. So my solution and idea was to just pull out my phone, like very discreetly with the camera on, with the video recording, and just put it out the window and take a video. And then I would scrub through that video later and just take screenshots of like all the interesting things I really saw.
Hmm.
And so I edited those videos, I edited those screenshots, and those screenshots ended up becoming part of a series of work, which I called Karachi in Motion.
Hmm.
Karachi was the city that I was visiting, and a lot of people in Karachi use motorbikes as transportation because the city isn't built too well. So a lot of the streets are like packed and jammed, and a motorbike is just the most accessible way to get to places
Right.
really quickly. So that's kind of what originally inspired me to just pull out my phone because I noticed such a pattern of the motorbikes, and I was like
Yeah.
intrigued because in the States, motorbikes or motorcycles are more of a luxury item, whereas in
Hmm.
Pakistan, motorbikes are like a necessity and it's like
Right.
everyone has them. So
Interesting.
that's kind of how the series came about. And I called it Karachi in Motion because I was in a car. And also, the images have a bit of a blur to them because when I
Yeah.
was recording the video, like the frames per second was, I don't know too much about video, but the frames per second was in a way in such that I could get like blurred
Yeah.
screenshots.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so one of the things that's coming to my mind is just the many photo trips that I've taken, and almost kind of like the disappointment that I've experienced before. I mean, it sounds like, this was like a pivotal, huge life trip with so much meaning. You certainly must have had quite a bit of like expectations and hopes built up in your mind, and then you get there, and it sounds like, that just none of that was possible. And I love how you improvised, but I'm just curious, like, was there kind of a moment of disappointment like that, and how did you kind of deal with your own, um, unmet expectations and be able to pivot like that? I think it's really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was disappointed very slightly that maybe the trip didn't come back or didn't come out the way I would have liked to in terms of like taking photos.
Yeah.
Um, and then, that little voice in my head was like, well, if I don't get any images, then how am I going to pitch this to like a
Right.
publication and how am I going to
Mhm.
be able to grow my business? So it was like all like that, but kind of just like shut that voice down in my head and, was like, the main reason I'm here in Pakistan isn't actually to take photos, it's to like be with family again that I haven't
Right.
seen in
Right.
9 years. So again, just going back to like the core of who I am and back to my heart and just grounding myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and
That's good.
then just kind of honestly pushing that voice out and just asking myself, like, okay, well, focusing on the problem isn't going to like fix it. So what else can I do to,
Yeah.
um, you know, get what I want, but at the same time, like adapt to my circumstances. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of just when I was like, I'm just going to record a video. And in recording a video and taking a screenshot, I there was a bit of like another voice in my head was like, is this fake of me to do as a
Mm,
photographer to take a screenshot of a video? And is that actually a photograph? And is it actually an
mm,
image? And so it was also kind of a learning moment where I was like challenging the
mm-hmm,
ways that I
mm-hmm.
once believed and like just learning a new experience.
Yeah, I mean that is a super relevant question right
Yeah.
now. What is a photo?
Yeah.
Certainly more in the AI space, we're thinking about that. But I mean, it sounds like you landed on a screen grab from a video is definitely a photo. Is that how you feel?
I think so. I would say that if you took the video too and you capture like a screenshot from it, then I feel like that's a way of image making because at the end of the day, it is an image. So,
Hmm.
like, photography doesn't have like a very like specific definition where it's like you have to take a Sony A7i with this lens and you have to press the button for it to be
Right, right.
an image or a photograph.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, very much mirrors my own feelings. Been thinking about this a lot, just with all the conversations going around with AI, and I don't remember the exact wording, but Apple came out with a statement about this pretty recently, and I liked what they said. It was basically like a photo is something that really happened. It's a moment in time, and I think that's been true for the whole life of photography. It's kind of the difference between painting and photography. Painting can be very realistic, but it's not, actually the light that actually hit the thing from the actual time. It's like I like how John Berger put it, like it's a photograph's quote from reality. And I think there's something to that. And, whether it's a series, a video is just a series of photos basically being played in time. And if you pull one of those out and present it as a photo, it's no less a moment in time that's being captured.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much of it depends on what's being transmitted, what's being, what your intent is, your heart, and what's being communicated, and then what the viewer gets. Yeah, to me, that seems very much like a photo. And it is certainly unconventional, but given the constraints that you were faced with, I'm amazed that you came up with this, and kudos and applause to you for pulling this off. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So, this is a wonderful story. How are you gonna, how do you, both as a storyteller and practically, how do you take all of that and distill it down to something that's like actually consumable? You mentioned that you're maybe going to be pitching it as a story. How do you go about that? What's the process there?
Yeah. So when I did take the screenshots, I immediately like went to the VSCO app actually to edit the photos. Um, because I wanted to, I think the video kind of like diluted the colors a bit, and these
Yeah.
stories, I was like documenting these little snippets of like little blurs that I saw on my car ride. And just every single corner of the street of Pakistan had such a story to it. Like there's
Mm,
street vendors, there's people selling items, there's markets and just different stores, there's different lights. Karachi is called the
right.
city of lights. Um, so I really wanted to bring out like the lushness of these stories through color. So I used it on VSCO, and I
Love that.
edited all I edited all the images on VSCO. And then to present it, I have used blogs to
Mm,
create a story around it so that it's just all in one place, and I can just use that as a way to put it out into the world.
yeah.
Um, like when it came to pitching, I would have pitched it, but because I was already in the VSCO app and VSCO has all these features, I was just like, it's just more convenient and an easy way to like share this story with the world
Yeah.
through my own like control. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with like my own words and things like that. So that's how I have brought it out
Makes
into the
sense.
world.
Nice. And so then, are you going to pitch it as a story? And it sounds like you're just going to basically send the link to the Visco blog at that point. Is that what the plan is?
I think so. I think at this point, I wouldn't pitch it anywhere else. I think it's something that I could probably continue in some way, whether it's me going back to Pakistan or not. So, just continuing to add to the series and just keeping it all in one spot, I feel
Yeah.
like is the best way for it to live.
Great. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I mean, this is incredible. And if you're watching this, do go check out Simra's blog. We'll link to it in the show description here. But it's beautiful. Please go look at that. It's wonderful. We'll probably show a few clips of that here as well. Um, so you faced a lot of challenges in doing this, and I guess I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, and this could just be broadly or for yourself personally, but what do you think is the hardest thing about being a photographer for you?
I think the hardest part about being a photographer for me would have to be really getting my story out there,
Mm,
meaning like when I do pitch my work, I have such a niche topic that I'm talking about, but
yeah.
it doesn't resonate with every single publication.
Mm,
Being Pakistani and being Muslim, a lot of our stories currently aren't shared, and
mm,
so a lot of people aren't interested in it in some ways. So it's really hard to pitch myself,
mm,
and pitch my work and really like fight for my work in that way.
yeah.
So yeah, like again, when I'm given the opportunity to just put it out there myself, I just put it out there myself and kind of advocate for myself and my own work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really about that. And I think just as myself as a photographer, I like to really amplify like other voices who are facing like the same challenges and
Yeah.
really just supporting their work as well. Um, yeah.
So I mean, it sounds like it's a challenge, but you have kind of been learning and pushing, and I guess any tips for other people that are kind of facing those sort of challenges, or anything that you've learned that you would yeah, want to pass along?
Yeah, in that regard, I would say to support yourself and be an advocate for yourself because, I can pitch to places and they may say yes or no. And if they say no, then at least, I'm still putting in the work to stand up for the my work, and kind of just being there for myself because if
Yeah.
you're not going to advocate for yourself, then no one in the world is going to be able to. And then also, that's also not to say that no one is going to like say yes to taking in your work for their publication. but it's
Yeah.
just about like the right people and the right opportunity that like truly aligns with your voice as an artist.
Yeah. And is that just knock on as many doors as you can find, or is there some kind of like a strategic stance that you take to, to find the right people to, to pitch to? What has that been for you?
Yeah, I would say that I first do my research on what publications could align with the work that I'm
Hmm.
doing. And then I find all of those publications and knock on many doors as I can for that.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe like one will respond and say, yeah, sure, let's go with it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of, yeah, I think it's just all about that right opportunity and that right moment.
Yeah. How much of the work that you do is like you reaching out to them versus them coming to you, if you don't
Yeah,
mind sharing?
yeah. I would say that maybe like 80% of my work probably has been from like my client work has been from people reaching out to me.
Hmm.
And then maybe 20% of my work has been me reaching out to a client and then waiting for them to have something for me. And then they actually do come back to me.
Hmm.
And that time period could honestly be like 3 months to like a year or two. So it's like a
Wow.
game of waiting, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like, yeah, again, when the right opportunity is there for you, then it'll come at like the perfect moment.
Yeah. So it's like you're building relationships
Mhm.
and getting into people's minds. And then when that right opportunity comes, they think of you, they get back to you. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not like, you just call a bunch of people and start work and that's that.
Hmm.
Probably takes a while.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, it's fascinating. And I mean, you've been going for a while now. How do you feel like the industry has changed, the process has changed, if at all? Have you seen anything like that in the time that you've been working?
Um, I would say that I think just after COVID in general, things have
Hmm.
started to slow down quite a bit. Um, not that other photographers or myself are getting like these really cool gigs, but
Yeah,
it's just less so with how the economy is right now and just everything else in the world.
yeah. This is something I was going
Yeah.
to ask about actually, because I feel like I'm hearing this a lot. People saying this has been a really hard year, not getting as much work, those kinds of things. And there's people are pointing their fingers at everything from AI to the economy to, social media, video, whatever. And it sounds like you're saying post COVID, just economy is not as good, and therefore photo work isn't as good. Is that kind of how you're feeling?
Yeah, definitely. I think like the year after COVID was a pretty good year for me
Hmm.
because there were a lot of like DEI campaigns and
Oh,
people were
wow.
interested in this is kind of a hot take almost, but a lot of
Give it to
people
us. Let's hear it.
a lot of people were all of a sudden like interested in bringing in like diverse talent and
Mm,
like I being Pakistani, being Muslim, they wanted to hire me for my work. And
right.
so in 2020 and 2021, a lot of that was happening and I was like getting a lot of clients. But then the year after that, those same people like became quiet and I think like
Mm,
those same DEI initiatives kind of became quiet and didn't have like budget or things like that.
yeah.
And so I
Interesting.
think I've heard this from a lot of like BIPOC creators that after like 2020 and 2021, all of a sudden their clients have like forgotten about them um,
Hmm.
when they were like constantly in our inboxes asking us to create work around our identities. So
Wow.
I think that's a bit of like a change in the mix of just the economy and AI and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a sad commentary on, I don't know, our world, but yet another factor in all of this. That's fascinating. I hadn't heard that one before. Um, well, I certainly hope that picks back up for you. But it sounds like you're doing okay.
Yeah.
which I'm glad to hear. And I just got to ask, because, we all want to know. You mentioned, I think you're shooting with Sony. Can you just give us the rundown of your gear and
Hmm.
what makes your beautiful shots work gear
Yeah.
wise?
So digitally, I shoot with a Sony A7. I don't even know how to pronounce it. A7, like a three eyes. A7
I
three.
think it's three.
There's A7 III.
Yeah, because I think
A7.
it's Roman numerals, right? Because they go like three, and then there's like the IV, which is four, and then I think
Yeah.
there's an A7R5. I should know
Okay.
this. I did a
Well,
video on this. I should know
yeah.
this. But this is a Sony A7, one of them.
Yeah. Sony A7. The third one, I don't know. And then I shoot with I have a 35 millimeter prime lens, and
Mm,
then I have a 24 to 70 1.2 or 1.8 lens. Um, and then film wise, I haven't been shooting too much film lately, but I shoot with the Mamiya RZ67, and then I have a
nice.
Contax T2 for just like those fun
Beautiful.
out and about moments. That's pretty much it for like what I shoot with.
Yeah. And it sounds like from how you're saying that film is more fun, digital is what you do for client work mostly.
Yeah, or actually just lately in general, I haven't been touching my film cameras as much. Um, but I shoot mostly digitally with clients, and then a lot of my recent personal work has been with a digital camera as well. But yeah, my photos kind of, when I edit my photos, they just somehow end up looking like film. So yeah.
Great. Anything else? Any parting wisdom? Anything else you would want to pass along to other budding photographers who are wanting to kind of go on the same path that you're on?
Um, I would say that, the longer it's a hard career path because it's like you really have to advocate for yourself and put yourself out there and do a lot of outreach. But the longer you are in the game, like people don't tend to stick around in the game for long. So then there's like
Hmm.
less competition. So to just keep
Interesting.
like persevering and keep going in the game. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people say that, but it's actually kind of true. Like the longer you are in the game, then the more work you're producing and putting out there, and like someone's
Yeah.
going to see it and reach out to you. So
So you're just going to outlast them all.
yeah.
Nice. I mean, I actually saw somebody say something to the effect of like, everybody's so concerned about being super unique and different, and just being good and showing up and being consistent is enough. And
Hmm.
it sounds like you would add to that and continuing to do that for a long period of time. I think that's wonderful advice, because I think so many people feel like they're not good enough, they're not special, they're not, whoever their hero is, that seems unachievable to them. And just that advice of just keep going, keep at it, don't leave, and there's a place for you, and if you stick around. I think that's super encouraging. So thank you, Simra. All right. Well, this has been an incredible interview. Thank you so much, Simra. We
Thank you.
will link to your work and your VSCO and your blog and all those things in the show notes, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you
Cool.
all.
Thank you.